We are joined by Mayor Steve Bach in our downtown studios to kind of talk about the 1-year anniversary of Waldo Canyon Fire. Mayor, you know, I've told you before I wasn't here for this, but try to best describe your recollections of a year ago and what you kind of went through, what you saw as the fire came into the city of Colorado Springs.
Well, it's the tragedy that had been feared for decades and hoped would never happen, and of course it did happen. On that Saturday, June 23rd, I got a call from our fire chief telling me that fire had been spotted up in the county, up in the National Forest, and that it was serious and moving toward Colorado Springs, and asking me to come to West Colorado Avenue where police and fire had already set up mobile command posts. And so I went out there, and it was not chaotic, but it was a very hurried environment. A lot of firefighters, a lot of police officers, a lot of people leaving for Cedar Heights, which is where we thought initially the fire would enter the city. And fortunately, those folks had done a wonderful job of mitigation in cooperation with our fire department over the previous 3 years, and the wind shifted back away from Cedar Heights. We thought we would lose Cedar Heights that first day. It was a surreal moment for me. I really hadn't anticipated that kind of circumstance in my position. I'd been briefed by our emergency management staff. I was very impressed with the way they were organized, and certainly when I got to the command post that Saturday and went into the police and fire trailers there, it was clear that there was a plan both for evacuation and how to fight a fire. The challenge was it was outside the city, and we did not have jurisdiction in the National Forest, and so we technically had to wait either for the county to ask our support out in the county or for it to become a federal fire event, which it ultimately did, of course. So that first day was kind of disorienting, to be honest. There was so much going on, and I felt helpless. I was in front of the cameras several times, and I just encouraged my fellow citizens to be alert, but also stay calm and just try to encourage people that we've got, world's best firefighters and police officers on the scene.
And I keep hearing that, over the past year and into the Black Forest, and the firefighters that have done their job risking their lives to save everything for everybody else. What kind of men and women are working in the fire department in this area?
Well, they're unbelievable people, and I would say the same about our police officers. I also have to say the same about a lot of Colorado Springs Utilities employees and people from other jurisdictions, the county, sheriff's department, and fire districts that came to aid on Waldo Canyon and more recently on Black Forest. Hundreds and hundreds of amazingly courageous people, caring people, incredibly calm in the face of such immense danger. That day, on that Saturday, June 23rd, fire department brought in fresh firefighters in buses to then be moved up into Cedar Heights and to take over positions from the firefighters who had been up there. So I got on some of those buses as these firefighters sat there waiting to get off to be deployed. And they all looked like they were 12 years old to me, of course, being older myself, but I just thanked them for their service. And as the fire continued, and I was there pretty much 24/7 like everybody else, and we moved the command post up north to Holmes Middle School. Once it became a federal incident, I saw even more, and that Tuesday, the 26th of June, is burned into my memory, of course, forever. The afternoon media conference you may remember us talking about, John. Rich Harvey, the federal incident commander, was addressing the media at our second media conference of the day, and the fire was moving back toward the city at a pretty good clip. It had gone back and forth in direction, and I was standing next to him, and he turned around to point to the map to show the media what was happening with the fire, and his mouth dropped open, literally. So I turned around and I looked past the map and I looked up above mountain shadows, and it was an unbelievable scene. I don't know, 50, 100-foot wall of flame, just racing down the mountain shadows. It was like some huge force with the biggest blowtorch that could ever be created was coming down in the mountain shadows. And to get to the point, later that day, that evening, Governor came down, Governor Hickenlooper, which I very much appreciated that support, by helicopter. I don't know how he landed in all that smoke, but he did. And we drove up on Mesa to 30th Street and then 30th to Centennial, where the forward fire command post was. And the wind was blowing, I don't know, 50, 60 miles an hour. Fire was coming in sideways, embers blowing everywhere. There were a lot of firefighters there having used their water in their engines, and they were back getting more water to go back up and fight the fire. A lot of police officers, a lot of younger people, and immense smoke. Of course, I've seen the same thing recently at Black Forest Fire. And you know, they can't wear a breathing apparatus in that kind of circumstances. It's too heavy. It's designed for structure fires where you're maybe having limited movement within a building. In this case, they're fighting a wildfire, and so some of them had some masks on, but the bravery of those people was unbelievable.
Do you remember what you thought when you saw that wall of fire come over through Mountain Shadows? Do you remember what you did, what you thought?
Yeah, I do. Honestly thought we probably lost thousands of people at that moment. Didn't know, but I thought this is bad, really bad. We'd evacuated the south half of Mountain Shadows previous Saturday, and folks were getting a little grumpy being displaced after several nights, and we actually let some back in that Tuesday morning just for a brief time, escorted by police officers to check on their properties. And we even toyed with letting them stay because we'd been told by the federal folks it looks like the fire is heading away from the springs, and that continues, that trend continues, probably be safe to let them back in. I'm glad we didn't, obviously. But the second half of Mountain Shadows and north of there into Peregrine, we waited to evacuate because we thought we were told we'd have at least 4 hours from the time we were given notice by the federal folks to get people out. That's what they thought. The fire was moving at a quarter mile an hour. Well, we now know that that front came down the front range, 65 mile an hour winds, and grabbed that fire, and it jumped 3 ridges. I saw it. That fire jumped Rampart Reservoir, John, which is one of our important water resources above the Air Force Academy, 1.25 miles across of solid water. That fire jumped that reservoir and started an outbreak fire right above the Air Force Academy. And if the 4th ID from Fort Carson hadn't gotten up there with bulldozers, we think we would have lost the Air Force Academy. So it was an unbelievable moment. I thought this can't be real, but then of course it was. And as we finished the media conference, and I then reconvened with our police and fire people, and fire chief said, you know, we've lost hundreds of homes. We don't know how many people. It was the worst feeling I've ever had in my whole life because I felt personally responsible, and we lost 2 precious lives. But it could have been so much worse. And we evacuated 26,000 people in 2 hours. It was chaotic. A lot of anxiety there for a lot of people. I'm so respectful of all the people who've been impacted by both the Waldo Canyon Fire and now this Black Forest Fire. People are amazing in this community. The people that have been hurt so badly, their courage, their resiliency, their grace under incredibly difficult circumstances. Everyone else in this region who have stepped forward for Waldo Canyon people and now Black Forest folks is the flip side of that awful feeling I felt that day. I've met so many great people, both those who have been hurt by the fire and those who have come to help.
And it's shown recently, again, the resolve of the people in this community. You spoke about it briefly, whether it's El Paso County, the city of Colorado Springs. Everyone wants to help their neighbor. When someone needs to lean on a friend, that friend is there. And I feel like it's a shame that it takes a tragedy to have the opportunity to see that, but when it does happen, it's there.
It's very meaningful. You know, we have a Western heritage here. Even those of us who are transplants, I hope you feel some of that spirit, the pioneer spirit.
Yeah.
People who have come here over the ages, over the generations, have always found a way to persevere and to help others who also help them. So I think there always has been that sense of community out there. Maybe we haven't been able to express it over a lot of time as it has been recently. And it is tragic that it takes a disaster like a major fire to cause that. But I'm so proud of our residents in this region. I do think people care about others and care about our community. And we're going to see it again in this Black Forest Fire. These folks have a tremendous hill to climb, just like the Waldo Canyon folks did. You know, in Mountain Shadows, we lost 347 homes. We're down to only 6 foundations left that have not been taken out, John. a year later. That's miraculous. It's a testament to the people themselves, to Bob Cutter, who started Colorado Springs Together, and literally the hundreds of volunteers who have stepped forward to help in that effort, and all the companies that have chipped in financially and in-kind services, and regional building department that has expedited so much of the approval processes, and all the other people involved. So we can learn from this. I think this is another wake-up call. We talked about this before, and I told you I have a friend who lives in a wildfire risk area, and I asked recently, what have you done to mitigate your property? Yeah, we need to get around to that. We don't believe it can happen to us. Well, it can. And my gosh, we don't want this to happen a third time. There are a lot of homes and a lot of lives at risk here.
There's an outstanding video done by the Colorado Springs Fire Department, and we talk mitigation, and thankfully, citizens don't get to see what happens firsthand when firefighters are defending the home, but the outstanding video that's gone viral at this point, you see, one, the bravery of the men and women and what they encounter. I don't know about you, but if I see a wall of fire coming my way, I might panic, but it's their job to put it out. And one of the things in the video that really stands out to me is the homeowner had done a good job with mitigation. There's fire literally trying to burn up a tree. There's no limbs for the fire to burn onto, and it kind of shows what could be done when you take care of your property properly.
That's exactly right. And folks need to create defensible space to give our fire department a chance to save their homes. In some cases in Waldo Canyon, there were people that had done an amazingly great job of mitigating, and they still lost their homes. Yeah. We learned a lot, so much from that experience, including the roof vents on your home that you see up on the soffit, on the other side of the soffit. Those are designed to draw fresh air up into your attic, to cool your attic, and then of course it's vented out through vents up higher on the roof. A lot of the homes that were lost in Waldo Canyon, I would suspect in Black Forest, were because burning embers that were flying around in those high winds were sucked up into those roof vents. Well, now we've been told the thing to do is to buy some real fine metal mesh from one of the hardware stores, take that roof vent off and put that mesh on the top side of it and secure it with a piece of wire. Put that cover back up there so you still get fresh air up into your attic, but you stop the embers from getting in there. Other homes were lost because the fire was so hot that it actually transmitted through windows and caught draperies on fire inside. So, put a screen up on those vents into your attic. If you have to evacuate, get your drapes down, move furniture away from your window by at least 5 feet. Those are simple ideas. The bigger ideas that are critical are keep fire fuel away from your home. You saw it out there in Black Forest and Chaparral Pines, I think. So there's some common sense steps people can take. And I just hope after the second major fire, people will understand that we must be individually responsible for creating defensible space.
And it takes a community to do it, because if we live next to each other, you take care of your yard, I don't take care of my yard, well, that could cause your home to be in danger. So it does take that sense of community once again to kind of come together and say, all right, we need to take this seriously, and we need to move on. In terms of moving on, and you spoke to the fact there are only 6 homes, 6 foundations still undeveloped. 1 year is pretty close after the fact. As it kind of progresses, what do you expect to see out of the neighborhoods that were affected, out of the people that were affected, moving on?
In Mountain Shadows, actually 78 families have moved back into new homes. There are another 122 homes under construction, which is pretty amazing, that much progress. There's been a lot of work done up there. I was up there on Arbor Day. Comcast had several hundred volunteers there. There were other volunteers from churches and community groups. We planted a bunch of trees up there. What's most impressive to me as I get around, and my wife Susie and I have been making a practice of going back into Mountain Shadows and just calling on people moving back in and taking them a small gift basket to welcome them back home. That's the upside, to see people whose lives are being restored, and how much better they feel, of course, and how much more hope they have for their future. And what's amazing is, invariably when we meet these people, they say, we never really knew our neighbors before. We'd wave in the morning as we leave for work or on our way in after work, but that was about it. We kind of just were busy with our lives. Now those people are getting together for potlucks, for all kinds of events together. They are family. I hope that will happen in Black Forest as well. it can help people recover much faster, and it builds relationships unbelievably in a great way.
Mayor Bach, I appreciate your time. Thanks for kind of explaining what happened, and we'll look forward to seeing how that area develops.
Thank you, John.